Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inform New Hampshire. My name is Dean. This is Richie to my right, and we are on YouTube at Inform New Hampshire, and we also have a Facebook group called Inform New Hampshire. So feel free to stop by and hit the like button or subscribe if you will. Richie and I are two patriot-minded individuals that found ourselves inconsistently interpreting the direction of our country and got very concerned, and so somehow we ended up together and decided to take on this show and hopefully inform people of some of the things you'll never hear in the mainstream media, and certainly not in your universities and your schools. And a lot of this information has to do with the direction of our country, the owners of our country, the structure, the government, the corruption level, and the hidden history that you've never been told about how we formulated this country, how it was usurped in many ways by different elements of the international banking cartel and such. So we hope to spread some light on the dark side of the universe, and by doing so, hopefully people will be informed and join us in our battle to take our country back and to restore liberty and justice in this great country, once great country of ours. So Richie and I, we met at the National Liberty Alliance, and the National Liberty Alliance is a grassroots organization that is committed to restoring the common law and the common law grand juries in our counties across the country. And we've been graced with the privilege and the honor of having the two founders, John Darash and Gerard Aplia, who are going to join us via phone call here on this show today. And so Richie and I, if you've watched our show before, we talk a lot about the National Liberty Alliance, and Richie was a state coordinator for a number of years. I found him operating as a state coordinator, and I joined him and became a state coordinator myself. And thank you to Richie for guiding the way, but it's been a great ride, and the National Liberty Alliance has done some really great things, and we're going to get into that on the show here. So Richie, you want to just do a brief introduction for the...
Yeah, before I do the introduction, I did want to mention Jerry DeLemus, though. I never want to forget Jerry and Sue, because Jerry's been incarcerated incorrectly, unlawfully, is more, I guess, to the point. He was a patriot. That's all he did, was stand up for his rights and the rights of other people. And he was sentenced to 87 months in prison out in Nevada. And he's still there. So he's got a long haul ahead of him. I'm hopeful that something will be done, but, I pray for him all the time, and I hope that you do too. I would ask that if you have any money to contribute to Jerry's Legal Aid Fund, please do so by going to freejerrydelemus.com and contributing whatever you can afford. Jerry's a good man. We need him outside of the prison so we can put the real crooks in. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And with that, we do have, John Darash with us right now from the National Liberty Alliance. I don't know if Jerry Aplia is on the phone, or he will be joining us during the call, but John Darash he's one of the founders of the National Liberty Alliance. And I would like to ask John if he would explain how he got involved with the National Liberty Alliance. I know he had a court case going on, and after that he took on the National Liberty Alliance and how it flourished. But if he could explain that. Are you there, John?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, Gerard didn't make it yet, but when he walks in, I'm sure you'll see the light and come in.
Okay. If you can briefly explain how you got involved or how you started the National Liberty Alliance. I know it came out of a court case that you were working on.
Thanks for joining us, John.
Yeah, we had some liberty groups here in New York, quite a few. We were involved with quite a few liberty groups, and when we started to do the committeemen, we started to realize that if we could take the political process back, then we can get good people into office and try to do something. So we started working in our own counties, and then we worked ultimately every county in New York, working to get people to join the process to become committeemen. But in that process, we discovered that it was so tightly controlled by the status quo people that we couldn't get in. They would constantly be just kicking us out or whatever. So anyway, we took it to court, and we thought we would get some headway in the court and be able to get some power and authority to be able to choose our elected individuals. But that didn't work out too well. We discovered that the courts were just as corrupt as the political process. So we then started to see, well, actually what happened is someone shared with us the United States, the U.S. versus Williams, and it was Justice Scalia who had written the decision on that one. And as we went through it, it was just like page after page after page of empowerment of the jury, particularly the grand jury. And so we started to look into that, and we realized that this is the way to go. If we can take control of the courts by taking control of the jury process, bring it back into the hands of the people, that we can get some justice. We started working in the federal courts at that point in time, and we started to discover that they were just as corrupt as the state courts. So all of the judiciary, both on at least in New York State and on the federal level, is just totally lost. Far away from what our founding fathers originally envisioned. So in the process of time, we filed probably about 14 papers, or well, maybe more than that, maybe 17 or 18 papers onto our government. Really, there were really informations concerning problems and situations in the court, and just out of control government altogether. And during the process, I think we started that in 2012. And so from that point in time till today, we've then accomplished over 6,000 members, and we've already filed papers in all the federal district courts and all of the, both, of course, the legislature and so all government on the state and federal levels. And so now we opened up a case because we knew we couldn't get anywhere in the federal court. This whole thing was planned to come to a point in time where we'd be able to open up an Article III court and take control of it. And thus far, it looks like we do have control of it. We opened this case up in December. We've been filing papers, getting ready for indictments through this process. We've made contact indirectly with the President. The President was interested in us actually before he even was elected. And we're feeding him information, and we've been feeding him information since he's been in the White House, so he's very much aware of what we're doing, all the papers we're filing, and the corruptions in the courts, and so on. We then started copying the Attorney General, looking for prosecutors. That's pretty much what we wrote him, and we sent him a copy of the case, and then we needed some prosecutors. 30 days has gone and went, and we sent another paper out to him, a second notice, copied the President to let him know that we're not too happy about this. This guy's supposed to step up for the law, stand for the law, so this is what we want, is to really just get justice back into our courts. So we filed those papers, and just recently, last week, I think this was filed on Friday, some outside judge came in and made a ruling in our case and tried to dismiss it. We wrote a writ of error, which it's going to be actually filed tomorrow. The writ of error overturning his decision. I think it was a pretty powerful paper that we've got. We laid it clearly out that he was self-appointed judge. He came in out from the outside. He wasn't part of this case. There's already a magistrate involved in this case. And of course, as I mentioned, this is really going through what's really an Article III court, a court of record, which is a court that proceeds according to the common law with trial juries. No judges make a decision in these courts. But the key to get justice ultimately is being able to get a trial jury or grand jury to hear the case, the grand jury for the purpose of indicting, of course, and the trial jury for convicting or acquitting. But the key is to get a jury that's aware of their power and their authority, they're aware of jury nullification, and understands, in order for there to be a crime, there must be an injured party, and to understand the basics of common law. And then at that point in time, you can then get a just case,
John.
Whether it's criminal or even if it's a contract case.
Could I ask you something, John?
Yeah.
I want you, just so the audience knows, could you tell them where to go to find that writ of error and the other papers on your website?
Sure. Yeah, you can go to nationallibertyalliance.org. Let me repeat that, nationallibertyalliance.org. And you'll see a blue bar on the top. If you go and highlight grand jury and come down and click on
Can you
docket,
show that?
and you will find
Dockets.
all of the papers that we have been filing the past year and a half, but particularly we've been filing in this case since December. And we're going after, a lot of judges. We've got 30 judges who have denied due process of habeas corpus. We've got numerous judges we're going after for permitting non-judicial foreclosures to go through their court. We also are going to, we collect a lot of information, and we're going after the murderers of Lavoy Finnegan out there in Oregon. And we're also going to be filing some papers concerning the Bundy case down there in Nevada. And then also there's another case, I'm trying to think of that individual's name, I don't remember offhand, but he's from Montana. He was put in jail for digging a hole on his property, and they railroaded. Again, all these people have been railroaded. So we're filing cases, show causes in these cases, pursuing indictments, and particularly against judges.
John, you said early on when you first got this started that you had discovered that the political process was corrupt and they were keeping you out. And then when you got in, saw that the courts were corrupt, you saw that there was some power behind the U.S. versus Williams was pointing out the power of the grand jury. Can you explain to our audience what's the difference between common law and what we currently have, and then also maybe say a little bit about the grand jury and the value of common law grand jury versus what we currently have?
Right. Well, look we've given our government certain authorities, okay? We've given the legislators authority to write legislation in certain areas, and you can find this information in Article 1, I think it's Section 8 and 9. But you'll find out the powers particularly there on what authority we've given them. When you go through that, you'll find that clearly we never gave them any authority to control our behavior through statutes. And the Supreme Court has ruled numerous times that statutes are not for the people. Ultimately, statutes are for government officials. They're to control commercial processes. All the places that we've given them powers to write these statutes. But only where necessary. But they've gone overboard, of course, and they started writing all these statutes. And when you go to court, federal court or state court or any court, you'll always find that they bring up these codes that you violated, this statute or that statute or code or whatever they want to call it, and then they fine you or incarcerate you depending on the particular quote-unquote statutory crime. Well, that is civil law. That is a process of the city. It's really controlled by government. It's law by government. Ultimately, they legislate law. Common law is totally different. Common law ultimately, to get to the bottom line of it, it's written in the hearts of all men. That's what common law is. Don't kill, don't steal, basically. Whenever an individual is injured, okay. If it's an accidental thing, then you can get sued and you have to pay restitution even though it's an accidental thing. But it could be a criminal thing. Maybe someone hits you in the head with a bat or something, or some corrupt cop, and there's plenty of them running around these days, abused you. And now that's a criminal offense, and there's an injured party, and the person committed a crime, and that would be a criminal case. But in common law, there's no difference between a civil case, which would be a contract case, a disagreement case, and a criminal case. It's all one court, and the cases being heard ultimately is for the purpose of restoring the injured party. Now, of course, there are certain cases like murder or something that, of course, has to be dealt with differently. Obviously, they can't bring the body back, but generally in common law, for murder, it's the death penalty, period. But there could be a manslaughter, or accidental death, or something like that. That's a whole different story, of course, and the jury's got to figure those things out. But the jury needs to decide on whether an individual is innocent or guilty by looking at the facts, not its code. If they violate a code, it's irrelevant. We don't have to obey codes, although we will get convicted of them. And you go into a state court or the county courts or even the town courts or even the federal courts, you can get convicted of codes. So common law ultimately, again, is when there's an injured party, there must be a remedy, and that's what the court system is for, whether it's criminal or maybe contract or accidental or whatever the case may be. Restitution must be made.
So where is common law? What's the status? When was, is it gone? Is it taken from us? Can you say something about that?
Well, yeah.
In other
look,
words,
in the Seventh Amendment, it talks about the common law, the requirement of common law. So we already have it in the Bill of Rights. The idea, the word law or in law actually means common law. There's different kinds of laws. We wrote a paper on this. You can find it up on our website on all the different kinds of laws. We did a memorandum. Let me see if I can see it real quickly. It's a memorandum. I think it was a memorandum on law. And we covered all the different kinds of law, but ultimately law is civil law. Most of the court systems that's out there has been in a lot of our history. But in the history of common law, civil law doesn't come to play. In other words, a government cannot make a statute that you must obey in order to control your behavior. Now that requires, people to control themselves. Of course, we have to be a little more mature. And if we started living under common law, I think we'd find ourselves become quite mature very quickly because, common law penalties could be a lot worse than even statutory penalties. But it's all up to the jury, the decision of the jury. Now, if you break, the key thing is an injury. Now, common law has been around for thousands of years. The first common law nation ultimately was the nation of Israel. They lived under common law. And our founding fathers really duplicated a lot of what the Bible talks about Israel and the law there. Ultimately, the law of the land is ultimately the Word of God. And it's all about injury.
Well, John, let me jump in here. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that common law, at least going back to 1776, is what we were supposed to be under. And what we've morphed into is the statutory law that the bar has created for all of us. They've done this very subtly over the past 150 years, but common law is still the law of the land, and we are supposed to be on the land jurisdiction, not the sea or any of this other garbage, because it's all created and fabricated.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we are under the law of the land, and the Constitution must be obeyed by our government. We are a republic, which talks about the public thing, or the public thing ultimately focuses in on the law, the Constitution. And the Constitution is the law of the land ultimately also because it really controls the government. It tells the administration what they can do. It tells the legislators what they could do, the judiciary what they could do, and the whole thing is all laid out in common law. Common law has been in the courts for quite some time, even while the statutory courts were going. The cities in certain states might have been more affected by the problems of statutory law a lot quicker than the more rural places. But I think probably when I was a kid back in the 50s and the 60s, I think common law was found pretty often in the courts, but they've been doing away with it. If you read a lot of the United States Supreme Court rulings, you will find they have been pretty much online and on board with the common law. There's a lot of reference. United States versus Williams, which was 1992, a lot of references to the common law in that paper alone. But that's not the only paper. There's a lot of papers out there, a lot of different decisions. Miranda versus Arizona, an extremely important case, and it builds heavily on the common law. Marbury versus Madison, again, that was in 1802. I don't remember when Miranda was, but in any event, there's a lot of cases out there. So we've got a lot of Supreme Court rulings that we use in our cases to bring us to that point of common law. They know it's still there. They know it's subversion to prevent the Constitution from being exercised in a courtroom. They know that it's subversion when they violate your due process. They know that, and when you can get it into a courtroom and make it stick like we have, they need to start getting worried because at some point, critical mass and hopefully a push from the political realm, hopefully the administration here and the Attorney General, if we can get a push from them, we can take that system down very quickly, literally almost overnight, so to speak.
John, I wanted to say something. I wanted you to comment on it, but that critical mass thing might be coming sooner than you think, but I'll let that go. The point I wanted to make is this. The two main principles under common law that for every injury you must have a remedy, and in order for there to be the crime, there must be a victim, and the state cannot be a victim. Well, I'm alleging that the reason that it doesn't exist anymore is because attorneys, aka the bar, can't make money on it, on common law. But they can make money on the statutory law, this garbage that they have, when they keep fining people and imprisoning people, because it generates money. And it has, I don't know what that is. Can you still there, John? You still there, John?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted you to comment on that.
Trying to pull a phone call in, but go ahead. I guess it caused some kind of interference, but go ahead.
Well, I just wanted you to comment on that. I don't know if you heard what I said, did you?
Give me a synopsis.
Okay.
I think I did.
I was
So my
talking
voice
about.
came in, it
I was
threw me
talking
off.
about
Say it again?
I was talking about the principles from the two maxims that you talk about under common law, and how attorneys can't make money on that under common law, but they do under the statutory garbage that they have today. Even putting people in jail because
Right.
their private prisons generate income for people. It's not justice, it's about money. That's my point.
Well, exactly. If you notice, you go to court, you seem to go every month, and it never seems to get anywhere. Your case could be in there for years, and there's no reason for cases to be in there for years. Look, at your basic contract disagreement usually can be heard in one day. Okay, it might take 90 days of paper writing back and forth to get all the facts down and get it into the process so they're ready to go into the court, so that the case can then be heard by a jury. And so that could take 90 days or 120 days, paperwork going back and forth, but it shouldn't take much more. I remember one time I filed a case, and I filed everything all at one time. It was like almost a book. It was an inch and a half thick of evidence and stuff that I filed in. And the lawyer, cried out to the judge that this was a foul or something, that I should be sanctioned. You're not supposed to put the whole case in at one point, And I have no idea why they think like that, but that's how they think. Now, the purpose of all that, of course, is to make money. They want to piecemeal it by bringing little evidence back and forth, and they go through, they're going back and forth asking questions and making statements and bringing in evidence. And then the judge will have these hearings, maybe once a month, and then make some summary judgments. Summary judgments cannot be made in any court of record. That means a court where a jury is going to hear it. So it can be no summary judgment, and that's why this judge that came into our case, he can't come in and make a summary judgment. It's not allowed in a court of record. All of this stuff is clearly laid out, by the way, by the United States Supreme Court. By using their cases, you can lay it all out. And, of course, you can go back into history and into the processes. But again, it's the difference ultimately, statutory versus right and wrong. Because, again, common law is really a court of justice. It has a concern for justice. It looks for the injured party. If it finds one, then they seek to get remedy. And of course, if someone is being accused of something, the court case has to prove that that's the person who did the injury. And if it does prove that this person did the injury, then the jury gets to decide what they're going to do, what this person has to do in order to pay recompense, in order to restore this individual that they injured.
John.
Anyway, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did, but I want to ask you another one, because this is my contention and only mine. But what I'm finding, just through friends of mine who are going through the court system, it's as if the judges or the system in general, I don't want to put the finger on any one individual, but since they have our Social Security number, it's like the attorneys look into your account and find out how much money does this person have, and then they figure out how long can we keep this court case going. I've seen people with a lot of money.
I don't think that the attorneys are actually aware of the SESQ accounts. I mean, they probably look at you if you're crazy. I mean, some of them do, but I think it's rare that an attorney might know. All the monies, that is involved where large corporations make money, they have corporate prisons, If there's something coming down, for instance, with the IRS or some other agency, it's all hidden in the way that they've written all these statutes in order to get funding or this or that or the other thing. I think that's the way they are able to eat up a lot of that money. The lawyers themselves, they get the money from the system. The system pays them to represent someone if they don't have the money to pay for a lawyer, or the client, of course, will pay if they got the money for the lawyer. But it's all about making money. The judge will continue to move that case, month by month by month, year by year, in order for the lawyers to make the money, and then eventually they'll settle the case. I was talking with a lawyer once, and he told me that any case that and this was a good guy, any case that he's ever really fought, it was very rare where such a fine line, they didn't know, who was right or who was wrong in the case. Generally speaking, right off the bat who should win and who's going to win. So there's no reason why a court can't detect that in the very beginning. Just get all the evidence in, and let's call a jury together, and in one day, generally, most cases could be heard, and get it done with. That's a speedy trial. But they don't do that. They want to stretch out the money. It's all about money. And the SQ accounts, I'm not sure exactly how a lot of that operates, but there's a lot of exchange of money that moves back and forth through a lot of these corporations with whatever favors or judgments are made in the court on behalf of a lot of these corporations. We know, for instance, the IRS and the Federal Reserve, that's one of the biggest money-making corporations in there, and the court does their bidding and constantly finds in their favor for the status quo all the time.
John, what's preventing me from walking down to the courthouse and starting a common law case now, and how did we get to this point where that's not accessible to me to be able to do that?
Yeah, they'll railroad you real quick. It's very difficult to do. I don't know that anyone could do it by themselves. We needed 6,000 plus people behind us. We needed to build a record, a reputation. We need to build a lot of paperwork and evidence up, and then all of a sudden file it. So we worked on it from 2012 to 2017. We filed in December of 2016 is when we filed this case. So let's just say we filed it at the beginning of this year. Well, actually, it would be because I think we filed it right after Christmas or right before Christmas. But in any event, we filed it in December, and now all of the paperwork, all of the work that we've been doing, everything we've generated up till now is now being put into the court. So we have huge amounts of paper. One of the problems they have with us is, trying to just shut the whole case down and throw us out for no standing, which we've written a paper on no standing ahead of time to let them know that they shouldn't try to do that because it's not accepted in a court of law. But in any event, they will try to throw you out for no standing or for this or for that. But when there's one case and one person or a couple of people trying to push that case through, they can railroad you very easily and very quickly. With us, we've got over 100 cases going into our case. You can dismiss one, but you still got the other 99. So this becomes a monumental problem for them from that perspective. So they can't throw us out for no standing. They can't throw us out because they're claiming we don't have a case or something, because they'd have to do it 100 times, and that would be pretty obvious. And they tried, of course, having an outsider come in, and this is ultimately is a crime for this judge to come in from the outside. He wasn't pulled out of the pool. The judge that we have is a magistrate. He was pulled from a pool of judges, and this is the judge we get. That's the way the court system works. Some other judge comes in and sticks his fingers or feet into this case.
Seems like just lost him.
We lost him. Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, well, if you want to try and back, I can talk over this.
Okay.
I know that what had happened was this judge rather overturned or dismissed the case, and what John did was submit a writ of error, which he's turning in tomorrow to the courts, because in a court of record, the sovereign is supreme, not the judge or the magistrate. The tribunal is the one who's supreme, which is the jury, by the way. But that writ of error is going to be turned in tomorrow by John. They work on the paperwork and then they fine-tune it, make sure the
All right, I
spelling is
guess I
right.
dropped out. Where did I drop out?
Talking about you just got to the point where the judge interfered and
Right.
dismissed the
Yeah,
case,
that's-
basically.
Yeah, that's called trespassing on the case. Okay, this judge, by coming from the outside, he self-appointed himself, okay, and he came in, wrote a decision, and filed it. I mean, that's trespassing on the case. He can't do that. And there's numerous other things that we're going after this judge for. There are 3 statutes. And remember, statutes are written for bureaucrats, elected individuals, appointed individuals, people working for the government. They're controlled by codes, okay? And because they've been empowered with certain authority, okay, inside the same statutes where they're empowered by authority, inside these statutes also control these people and will define a crime if someone is abusing their authority. They'll define that crime and give it a term of a sentence, okay? So you could use a statute to go after a judge. Concealment is a crime. This judge was trying to conceal this case by dismissing it and burying it. So that's concealment. That's 20 years in jail for that. Now, of course, a jury can make a decision on that. They can decide to give him 1 year. They can decide to give him 100 years. Whatever the jury wants to decide, that's their business. They're not controlled by statutes. That's what's called jury nullification. But we can go after this judge for concealment, of course, trespassing on the case, and there was another 1 or 2 other things that we can apply on him. And we're going to probably, bring it up for a potential indictment, bring it before the grand jury, and I'm sure they'll indict, but, I can't say that I know what they're going to do. But we'll bring the case up, and if they indict, we're going to start bringing the indictments into this case. Because the grand jury can't operate, a common law grand jury can't operate anywhere, that's why we opened this case up, and we took a number out, and we're filing all of our evidence into this court, including murder, RICO, subversion against the United States of America by enemies, both foreign and domestic, on both the federal and state levels. So we've got a lot of stuff going on in this case, and due process is one of the key problems. People aren't getting it. The other thing, ultimately, is just trying to get a court of record going. These courts are operating in what I refer to as jurisdictions unknown. Some people might say, well, they're operating on the sea. I know you mentioned that. And a few other places, other kinds of law that they might have been exercising in order to, go after someone and find a conviction. But what they do is they bring all kinds of different, court systems together, and they'll even ignore their own statutes. Sometimes you can use a statute against them, and they'll ignore it. So it's really jurisdictions unknown. They make it up as they go. They know where the end is going to be. They know how they want to end the case, and they already know from the beginning whether someone's going to be guilty or not. The whole fix is in from the very beginning. These courts are so corrupt. It's really, really sickening and a serious problem for the people.
Well, in New Hampshire, John, they have general jurisdiction, and I believe that was they named that after George Washington when he was the general. So they just called it general jurisdiction, I think. They make up the names as they go along, and they make up the jurisdictions as they go along.
Absolutely. You see, we're railroading them in a sense, and I don't want to use the word railroading. I mean, they railroad us all the time. But really, we got them in a situation, the train is moving, and they can't stop it. And so our case is going to build up momentum. It's already building up momentum. National Liberty Alliance has name recognition. A lot of people know we're dealing with the grand juries. Once people really start to look at our site and start reading it, they start to realize that this is the solution to fix America. Because, just think about it. What National Liberty Alliance is actually doing, the main purpose of the work we're doing, of course, is filing a court case on the federal level, which we've done, concerning subversion against the United States of America, against the Constitution, against the people, okay, from all levels of government. All right, so we're filing all these cases in there. We got murder cases and a lot of other cases. But the main thing that National Liberty Alliance is doing is building administrations across the nation. We're looking for 4 administrators for every county, and those administrators would be responsible for bringing in and preparing a trial jury or a grand jury to hear cases. So they would give them an orientation and answer their questions and advise them as they go along. In the case of a grand jury, these 4 individuals would become the investigative body for the grand jury. If they wanted to investigate something or get more information, those 4 individuals would go out and seek it and get and actually take the grand jury itself right out, the people right out with us if they wanted to go into a particular government office and look in files or a computer, whatever they want to do. That's the power and the authority of the grand jury. Now, with that kind of power, what they can do is they can indict an elected individual or appointed individual for breaking their oath, for instance. Okay, they would want to give them a warning, the opportunity to fix their problem, saying, "Hey, you're doing this, and you're violating your oath." And if they don't fix it, then you let them know, "We're going to call the grand jury." And so if they don't behave, you can call the grand jury, and the grand jury can come and try to make them, fix it if they want. They have the opportunity to try to negotiate it out. That's another thing a lot of people don't realize. The grand jury can fix the problems and never send them to court. So they can try to negotiate the problem out and fix the injured party and apply a necessary judgment right there that the 2 parties might agree upon. If not, then they can indict and send them into the court and let the trial jury decide. So there's a lot of steps that we can work through to prevent these problems, stop these problems. But just think, if you can get a government going and prevent anyone that's elected from violating the Constitution, we would then have a just government, wouldn't we?
Sure
If
would.
they just obeyed the Constitution, we'd have a just government. The only way you're going to get a just government is if you have a just court. And the only way you're going to have a just court is if you have just people in there making sure that it remains just. And that's why we're building these administrations from the grassroots, 4 people in every county to take care of that business. And they take an oath. Actually, it's a vow to God that they will come in with a sense of honor, justice, and mercy on all cases, try to work things out the best they can. And then they're responsible for policing themselves. If one of the 4 people starts to violate their vow that they gave to God, okay, because they all take that vow, then the other 3 can repair that person. They can take a hold of them and say, "Look, you're not holding up to your vow. You need to do this or stop doing that," or whatever the case may be. And if the person doesn't, heed the warning, then the 3 can get rid of the one. And then, of course, we're going to set up an appeal process where they can go to the county next door and appeal their case to them, and then they can make a final judgment maybe on it if the person's going to be fired or what, and that's that. Done. But if we don't have just people, we won't have just courts. If we don't have just courts, you can't have a just nation. And the nation, the people will be as just as the nation is. So there's a lot of corruption throughout our nation. Everybody seems to be on the take to some degree, generally speaking. And government is just, out of control.
John, I'd like to say this to you. I believe it's ignorance of the people, but I'm a state coordinator, Dean and I, as you know. Neither one of us get paid for this, nor does anybody else. It's a volunteer thing. We have looked long and hard, or I have looked, I'll speak for me, long and hard for an answer to America's problems. And I found it in NLA. The National Liberty Alliance has the peaceful, lawful solution to America's problems. What it needs is people to fight for themselves, because it's common law is the law of the land, and that's the people. They're under land jurisdiction. None of this other garbage. It matters today because of the corruption, but theoretically it doesn't matter. And what I'm trying to say is that you should be going to NLA. If you people out there who think, well, NLA's got no teeth, the teeth comes with you, comes with the people. And if there isn't enough people that give a damn about their law, because the Constitution is the people's law, both state and federal, then we might be in a world of scat. I almost said. We might be in a world of scat, but we need the people to get behind the National Liberty Alliance, especially now. I happen to think there's a civil war going on in the White House, and I don't mean with bullets, but believe me, they're battling inside there. 2 factions or 3 factions, I'm not sure how many there are.
No doubt.
And they're trying to discredit Trump from doing what he's trying to do. It's a hard job for him. He's not going to do it alone. One of the things, John, that really struck me on your website, and I mean this from my heart, I'm being very, very sincere, only the people can save America. That is true. If you're expecting Trump to do it, you can forget about it. He needs your help. And that means a lawful, peaceful solution to the NLA. And John, with that, I'll turn it over to you to explain what type of help you need with NLA, and hopefully our listeners will come to your aid.
Right. Yeah, and again, don't expect the other guy to do it, because all too often he's expecting you to do it or she's expecting you to do it, and then nobody's doing it. So everybody's got to pull together to do what has to be done to save America, because only the people can do that. And so when people come to National Liberty Alliance, we have a lot of things going on. We've got a lot of committees going on. For instance, we have the Committee of Safety, where we're assisting people and training people on how to create a Committee of Safety. All of our founding fathers, every single one of our founding fathers, was part of a Committee of Safety. That was the process. The Committees of Safety is what the process that our founding fathers used in order to develop and create a nation. And eventually, they wrote the Declaration of Independence, and of course, we had our war. Ultimately it was the Committees of Safety working together, creating a temporary government in order to fight that war. And then, of course, they worked together and argued the case on building a constitution. And you have the papers that you could read to understand how that process went through. But all of that was started and created and then handed over to an elected government at some point in time once the Constitution was in place. Now, the Committees of Safety have come back in history. You can even see here in the United States where there were certain problems, and the Committee of Safety would reorganize in different areas to deal with different problems. And that's what we're trying to do right now, is to organize Committees of Safety in every single county in America. And the main purpose ultimately is to empower and educate the sheriff. That's the key to success on local government. And so we teach the people that they need to go out and get a relationship with their sheriff, feed the sheriff information, educate him, get him or have some of his deputies come to some of the meetings, and eventually you start going to all of the different local governments. And once you can get the sheriff on board, now you kind of got his signature in there with all of your paperwork, and you're going in, and ultimately what you're doing is you're telling the towns and the villages and the counties and all the local governments ultimately that in the case of an emergency, the sheriff is the top cop. He's the guy that needs to make sure that the Constitution is protected and maintained during a national emergency. And so that's what that's really all about. And if we could do that in most counties, then there's no coup that even the elite could bring up that could take the people down. So if the sheriff understands his power and authority, and all local government understands the power and authority of the sheriff, then you have safety, and that's what the safety, the Committee of Safety is all about. We also, so everybody should consider joining that in their own county, and everybody should also, the Committees of Safety should support the people who are running to become administrators, which is a paid position, where they get to choose the individuals and orientate the juries, as I mentioned earlier, whether a grand jury or trial jury. We also have the Courtroom Observers Committee, where people who come to our website and they hang out with us for a while and learn about what we're doing, and maybe they're involved in a case and they got to go to a hearing. They'll make contact with our Courtroom Observers Committee, and the Courtroom Observers Committee will put the word out nationwide to anyone that could make it to the case to help this person out. If we can get 2, 3, 4, 5, or 10 people to come to a courtroom and get behind this individual and support them, and also write affidavits on behalf of the individual and what's taken place in the courtroom. This intimidates the judge, and quite often we have found it forces the judge to do the right thing. So cases have been dismissed and thrown out or whatever, or the right thing happened because of because of people going in to observe and to make sure justice is being done. We also have other committees. We have the Sheriff's Committee. We have the Natural Healing Committee just started up. We have the Common Law Advisory Committee. We have Investigative Research Committee. And there's some other committees we're trying to get started also. So people need to get involved. They need to get into a committee. And even if they only just volunteer 1 hour a week, just think of our membership. We have over 6,000 people. If everybody put in an hour a week, then they got 6,000 hours a week being put in to an effort to empower the people on the local level, right there in the grassroots in the counties, to empower the sheriff, to enforce justice in the courts, and eventually, of course, get courts of record moving back in both the state and the federal level by starting with an Article 3 court.
Tell us about
So a lot of things going on. We also ask everyone to give us $5 a month or more. This stuff costs money. Our website is very popular. We get a lot of hits. We got a lot of information. People can download all kinds of stuff. That's a lot of broadband is taken up and used, and so that costs a lot of money. And there's a lot of overhead that we have, and we're always struggling for $1. But if we can get $5 a month from everybody, some people can give 10, 15, 20 or more. We do have some people that give 50 or 100. But if everyone could give $5 a month or more, we'd have plenty of money to do a lot more than what we're doing. We are kind of restricted because we don't have enough money. But everybody's volunteer here, so we do the best we can.
You have some really outstanding free training courses. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little. Try that again.
I said you have some really outstanding free courses on your website. Can you tell us about that, the civics course?
Oh, yeah. Right on our blue bar, if you highlight free courses, you can take our civics course and our constitutional course. Our constitutional course, and both are free. You just go up there and take it, and you get marked on it. If you want a certificate, we can give you a certificate of completion for it. But anyway, your course is registered so that if you're going to be an administrator, for instance, all administrators are required to take these courses. So we know who's taking the courses and who's not. But they're free. The constitutional course is about a 6 to 8 hour course. You could do it on a Saturday if you want, do it in one shot, or over the course of so many evenings. Our civics course is a pretty big course, over 120 hours, that course is. And by the time you get through those, you should be pretty educated on a lot of new things that you probably never realized before. But we also have an education tab. You can come in here. We have all of the founding documents. We have the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, biography, state constitutions. We have essays and lectures. We have American history lectures, trial by jury essay. We have a U.S. Marshal essay, and a lot of other articles and essays. We also have some political information on the committeeman, the process, the elected committeeman, how to petition, Robert Rules of Orders. I mean, it goes on and on and on. We got a lot of the most powerful U.S. Supreme Court decisions up here. A lot of books, free books. We got Hobbes, we got Locke, Spinoza, Newton, Hume, I think it's pronounced, and we got 5,000-year leap up here. We have a lot of this stuff is also, we have not just in written fashion, we also, we have it in audio. I know the 5,000-year leap is in audio, and we have trial by jury is in audio. Our lectures, most of our American history lectures are video. I mean, we just got a lot of stuff. We also have a book that we wrote, put together, that's sort of the ABCs of filing a court case, looking the way that the process works today, but we take it the next step to make it a court of record case. But we do use the rules of the court as best we can, as long as they're not repugnant to the Constitution. So,
where can that be found, John? The literature for filing a court case. I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to look it up.
I think we just lost him.
I'm sorry, what are you looking for?
There we go.
No, the literature that you have on filing a court case, a common law court case, where can that be found on the website?
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure if I remember. Let me think. It may be...
Is it an old filing?
Course, constitutional class. We have a constitutional class also. And we have a free common law handbook. I don't remember where that's at. I can let you know during a week, and you can get back to your listeners maybe next week and give them that information. I just don't remember where that's located.
Okay.
John, what do you hope to accomplish if you are successful in this court case that you're involved in now?
Hey, hang on 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to show some of this website stuff, but it's...
All right, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Say that again. There was something happened in the room. Go ahead. Someone came in, but go ahead.
What happens if you're
Wiccan-
if you're successful with this court case that you're in New York?
If we're successful, and I do believe we will be successful, the question is when we'll be successful. It's a matter of really getting that big push of people, that critical mass, and also to get a prosecutor into the case, which we'd like them to appoint one. We're looking to get one out of for the Attorney General to send us one. We have someone that we can put in as that is a lawyer, not a bar lawyer, but he is a lawyer. He's licensed to practice law in what they call licenses. And he also was a prosecutor, and he's now a common law lawyer. And matter of fact, we learned a lot from this guy. He wrote a book called The Excellence in the Common Law. He's the only common law lawyer I've ever met. And but we believe we can get him to come and be a special prosecutor as long as we can get the Attorney General to give the approval. The pressure on this is really on the president and the people, because that's how we're going to do it. I don't have a lot of faith in Sessions, Jeff Sessions, which is the Attorney General. I don't really have a lot of faith with him. I think he's old school. But I have a lot of faith in the president. He understands what we're doing, and he's read our stuff. I can hear when he's speaking that he's a lot better than what he was before, but he still needs to learn, just like all of us need. As far as staying straight on the Constitution is concerned. But we're putting the pressure on him to put the pressure on the Attorney General. After all, he put this Attorney General into office. He can take him out. And he said that this guy is going to enforce the law. Well, here we are. We want him to enforce the law. So we're going to start to put the pressure on the White House now, or for the Attorney General to do something, or for him to get another Attorney General in order for the people to take control. Once we take control of this courtroom, all we need is an approved, prosecutor to come in and start the cases. Now we can start moving through indictments, and you will see changes in this court and in this nation, ultimately on every level of government, like you would never believe, because justice would now be applied. We would then be able to start moving, and I know we hit critical mass during this time period. Once we're moving and got that motion going. We're starting to do indictments. Now we're going to get the critical mass. Now the critical mass may come first to get us there, but it could be the administrative push to get us there. But one or the other needs to push to get us there. But once we're there, we'll have a lot of people from every county that would like to take on the jobs of administrators, take these jobs away from the prosecutors and away from the judges, who are always tainting the juries. You don't get a good jury. Every jury is tainted in America. The judge taints the trial juries, and the prosecutor taints the grand juries. So they always get their prosecutions, and they always get their money or the people time in prison. But this would move quite quickly. I would see justice move through America like you'd never seen it before. In 6 months to a year, it would be effected in every county. And once the common law, untainted grand juries come into play, you can stop all political corruption. Look at all this funny money they get from these special interest groups. All that is a bribe, and I think we can easily show any grand jury how clearly that's a bribe. I mean, after all, they're taking money from people to do their will. But I thought they were supposed to do the will of the people who elected them. So of course that is the case. And they're not doing the right thing. That's a crime. They're taking money to do the will of corporations, corporate America.
Yeah, they get into office and they're worth a couple $100,000, and when they leave office, they're worth millions. That's just not normal, okay? There's something wrong with that picture.
Exactly.
All right, John, we're going to wind it down.
So it could happen very quickly. So it will happen very quickly once we get the momentum in the court. It will move through this country like wildfire, and inside of a year, this country could be straightened up. And look at it. It wouldn't matter if Hitler was elected, because as long as he obeys the law, he can sin all he wants in his heart and soul. As long as he can't break the law, he's under control.
John, one last comment. Trump said it during his campaign. He says he's for restoring the rule of law. And he's already proved that he's trying to live up to his campaign promises. So if he does this it means people in America are going to be saved from the corruption in our courts and our government. So people should be behind
That's
you.
correct.
And unfortunately, we're running out of time here, so we're going to have to cut it short.
John, I want to thank you for coming on. Congratulations and great job on what you've accomplished, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Just thank you so much for what you've done and all the work you put into it. I know it's tireless and endless work that you do.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to come on and talking to your listeners, so thank you.
You're very
Well, we
welcome.
hope it bears some fruit because it means justice for the people of America, not just,
Amen.
John Darash or Richie Merritt or Dean. It means justice for the people of America.
Tell Gerard sorry we missed him.
Amen. Oh, yeah, I'll let him know.
Okay.
But amen to that, Richie. Anytime you want us, give us a call. We'll come on and give updates,
Absolutely, John. All right, you have
All
a
right.
good one. Thank
Okay.
you for coming in, John.
God bless. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. That was great.
Good timing.
Nope. We're still on.
Oh.
All right. So for those of you that got a little bit inspired by that, National Liberty Alliance is at nationallibertyalliance.org, and you can go there. You can become a member for free. Once you're a member, you can access the courses. So the civics course, like John said, was over 120 hours. It's a fantastic course. There's a constitutional course, and there's, as we just discovered, there are enormous amount of information on there, training, lots of documents. I'm sorry, I'm looking to my left because I'm looking at a computer with the site right there, and so it's there for anyone to get involved. And it's funny because we talk about it all the time. Richie and I are constantly searching for ways to get people involved, and what we find is that oftentimes it's only those who have been destroyed or marred or injured by the system and have engaged with the system and found out that the whole thing is corrupt, it's a farce, and it's just a way to take your money. So when people are injured by the system, then they start to wake up, especially those that lose their children to an unjust court system. That's where the really fire in the belly comes up. But so we would encourage you to join us, to stop by the site, sign up. You don't have to pay anything to sign up, and start investigating for yourself of what's going on in this country and how you might make a difference. It really does. We've done some work in some other areas with some other organizations, and every time you have one extra person with you, it brings just a small amount of talent or a large amount of talent, but every person counts, and you have to know that if you don't believe that you count, you're failing yourself and your community and your society. So get involved, take action, do something, educate yourself, and you're welcome to start out anywhere you want. But if you want to start out at the National Liberty Alliance, go there. It's got a fantastic civics course.
Do I get 2 minutes?
Yeah, go for it, buddy.
All right. I just wanted to say this to the listeners out there. This is very important. For a long time, I gave this analogy last year, too.
You got 30 seconds.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm not going to make it. You get a fire alarm going off in your apartment building. Everybody goes outside, stands in the parking lot, turns and watches the building to see if it's going to burn. I don't do that. I walk through the building and find out where the fire is because I want to put it out. I live there. I don't want it burning to the ground. My point is simply this. You have to participate in your life. Get involved and solve problems. That's all.
Thank you so
for
much.
watching.
Have a great week.